Some guys look good bald. Sean Connery, not so much. Doesn't look like good bald.
Aw, poor Shawnee. And here we go. It's the One More Rewrite podcast. Back at you after a little hiatus. But it is summertime, things happen, and well, speaking of things happening, we got some stuff for you on the news dockets, which is, just to do a little catch-up, the passing of James Horner. Another famous person that passed away that didn't seem to go as well noticed was Dick Van Patten. And also in the news, Suicide Squad, apparently the cast needs a therapist, whether that's because of how bad the movie looks or they're worried about their careers. We'll get into that. The new Spider-Man cast, or new casting for Spider-Man, I should say. I guess Marvel wanted a younger-looking guy, and he looks it. And the director of Terminator Genesis was, we'll say, displeased with the way that his film was marketed, which is very understandable. And before we get into all of that, and maybe it actually dovetails nicely into, let's talk about the box office. And seeing as this was a holiday weekend, just rounding out the top three, you've got first place went to Jurassic World again. And
it's third week, right?
I'm looking at the number here, week number 4. I was going to say, no, it's been out since like June, like mid-June. So
wow.
We're looking at a movie that I'm thinking this is, I'd have to look through, but I'm betting this is beating out. Yeah, it is. Looking at the totals, Age of Ultron right now is sitting at $454 million domestic total gross, and Jurassic World is at $558 million.
No, domestic,
so,
really?
Domestic, and that's whether that's domestic or worldwide doesn't matter. It's beating it.
Well,
and
that's definitely got to be.
This is the number one movie of the summer.
Worldwide.
Is the
can't be over that. It can't be $500 million just domestic, but
that's probably true. But yeah, either way though, that's still like Jurassic World
Jurassic World might be the biggest movie of the summer.
No, I think it's hands down is, because Age of Ultron isn't going to pull another $100 million out of its hat like in the next month or two, seeing as it came out at the beginning of May.
Yeah, well, probably right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And Jurassic World is in its 4th week, Age of Ultron in its 10th. We're talking, I would not have guessed
really this. Surprising. I expected it to do pretty good. It's the Jurassic Park we always wanted.
But not but such gangbusters that it's like...
just huge.
Yeah.
And, I think the part of it is that it pulls across the spectrum. You've got, all the people that grew up and watched Jurassic Park back when they were kids or teenagers or, whatever. I mean, it came out in, 93?
Yeah.
So you've got 20 years, a little over that, since the first one came out. I mean, most people aren't that old. Most movie-going population, that's like right in the heart of movie-going population, isn't even old enough to have been alive when the first one came out.
Yeah. And that is just...
So... a lot of people grew up watching it, so... And now they're taking their kids to it,
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got generational going on, they're just boom, boom, our parents, us, and we've got our younger sisters who go see it, and then you've got, my daughter is way too young for that, but you've got people who've got kids who are, already 5, 6, 7, and let's go see the dinosaur movie, so yeah.
Yeah, and kids love dinosaurs.
Yeah, which I would have guessed that Inside Out, which is in second with $246 million, it's in its 3rd week. I would have thought that would have been huge, because everybody's saying that hey, this is Pixar that we know and love. This is them
and
back.
It's got huge legs, though.
It's got legs.
It's just been running. It actually is the highest grossing movie never to be in the number 1 spot.
Oh, really? So it's just, it has been sitting out at number 2 for the past couple of weeks.
But it's just steady right there.
It's steady. Well, I can help it, but is it 300 million steady? Because Jurassic World has been in first place.
Yeah.
It's just
if it hadn't been for Jurassic World, Inside Out would have held the top spot for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It would have had it. But Jurassic World was there, and kids are going to that too, and going with their families, you know?
Yeah. And then
I think there's, a few different ways that you can get a high PBF with that one, you know?
You are, but I think that Inside Out, being from Pixar and now having been bought out by Disney, they suffer from the past few movies that they've made, everybody has said, have been lackluster. So now you're looking at, like, you have to regain the audience that you lost with, like, I want to say Cars, but Cars 2 and Brave and Planes. Like, they, not saying they totally trashed their goodwill, but they did lose a bit of it.
They lost some of it, but everybody's saying this is the best one since Toy Story 3.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is people saying, wow, Pixar's back.
Mm-hmm.
And, which is both good and bad, because it's like, awesome, Pixar's back, but at the same time, but I'd say before Cars 2, there wasn't even a concept of, like, Pixar is back. Pixar was just churning out hit after hit after hit.
Well, yeah.
Even the ones that weren't as good as the other ones were still pretty darn good.
Even Cars 2 did actually pretty decent business.
Cars 2 did pretty good, but that, I think, was the beginning of the end for them. Actually, I'm not sure if Brave came out before that. I'd have to look at the timeline. I know, but a whole lot of other people didn't. You know, I was going to say, there are a lot of... There were a lot of issues with it. I don't want to get into them because that's a little distracting. But let's say the fact that they have to have a quote unquote comeback is not good. So that's saying something in itself. But here we are. They're sitting strong at number 2, but I don't think they're going to get past. I don't think they're somehow going to reclaim it because this weekend Minions, or next weekend I should say, Minions comes out.
Minions, which is going to be huge.
Minions is going to be
142. Huge. Internationally so far.
Oh, it has. It's been released internationally.
It was released internationally
before America.
Yeah,
Yeesh.
And it's at 142 before it's released in America. So there you go.
I was gonna say, you know what's not sitting pretty though is what's in number 3, and we'll just round out the top 10 really quick here. You've got Terminator Genesis, 28 million for the first weekend that it's open, and it's in like 3,700 theaters. Total gross of 44 million because it opened up a few days before the weekend. Magic Mike is sitting at like 26 million, and
that's pretty good for Magic Mike.
Which is pretty good for Magic Mike.
That much to make it, but
still, that's in like over 3,000 theaters as well. Ted 2 total grosses so far is 58. Max, which was that dog movie, 25 mil, sitting at 6. Spy in 7th. Made $5 million over the weekend. San Andreas, which did break the 100 million mark, is sitting at about 147 million. It'll probably tap out at probably 160 million before it bows out of theaters. Me Earl and the Dying Girl at 1.3 million, and then a movie, I don't know if we covered it, Dope. It looks like a smaller release. It's only 863 theaters in 10th. And Mad Max just edged out. They're in 11th. I gotta go see it again. It was just so awesome.
But I do have to give an honorable mention to the Amy Winehouse documentary.
Oh, really?
Amy, which opened in 4 theaters and earned $37,000 per screen. So, huge per screen take. So you got to give it to on that. So
yeah,
got to get an honorable mention for $37,000 per screen.
Yeah,
which is pretty darn good.
Yeah, what isn't
especially when it's about Amy Winehouse, who died like 10 years ago, and
really,
like really,
it's been 10 years since she died. I didn't think it was like that long ago. It could have been 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Okay, well, let's just kind of find a horrible segue to go into how horribly Terminator Genesis is doing, which is very unfortunate because it looks fun.
It does. It's been getting horrible reviews.
It's been getting horrible.
For one, I think it's like 27% fresh.
Yeah.
It's just, people don't seem to like it that much. A lot of the critics, from what I've seen, are saying, yeah, it's fun and all, but...
Is it that enough? You see, here's the thing. I think that it could have been fun. I think it still looks like fun. I still want to see it. It's an Arnie movie. It's a Terminator Arnie movie, which... How many more of those are you going to get, really?
Yeah,
like, let's be realistic. Like, I say enjoy what you have. Enjoy what you got up there with Arnie doing Terminator and whatever weird timeline stuff they have going on. Speaking of which, before we jump out of the box office and a bit more about Terminator, just a fair warning spoiler, which at this point I don't know how much of it is a spoiler because it was ruined itself, but spoilers ahead. Terminator Genesis was marketed terribly. It's one of
horrible.
I think short of Pleasantville, which had like a 4.5-minute trailer,
Yeah.
which showed basically the entire movie, including character arcs and everything. I was like, well, that was a nice movie. Now I don't have to see it.
Save yourself a whole lot of time.
I just saved myself a whole lot of time by watching the trailer. Terminator Genesis revealed like major plot points in the trailer. It was like the first trailer just showed, okay, it has like a T-1000 again, which is kind of cool.
Right.
It shows that like the timeline's kind of whacked out, and you see a little bit of like old Arnie fighting young Arnie, which looked cool. And then the second trailer came along, and holy cow, I don't know who in marketing thought this was a good idea, but
they've got to try and pick the best parts of the movie, and so
I think the ending with Arnie fighting old Arnie fighting new Arnie, that looked awesome. That was enough to sell me. But apparently it wasn't enough for whoever made the call, because as I was reading it this past week, the director was pissed because they basically gave away a major plot point of the film, which you've seen.
Yeah.
Maybe not the film, but you've seen the trailer. Which is that somewhere along the line, John Connor, leader of the Resistance, becomes a Terminator.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa, that's I remember the first time I saw that, I was just like, whoa, that seems like a big reveal.
It is.
So, yeah, what happens is that he's a Terminator. John Connor, leader of the Resistance, has been Terminatorified, and that was shown in the second trailer. That was just supposed to be a big reveal. I read an interview with the director, whose name escapes me, who said basically that he was shocked when he saw it because he had shot it in such a way to
he
not
really
have
wanted
that.
it to be a big reveal of like everything's going along very smoothly, and then holy
he wanted to
Terminator.
That was supposed to be like a huge surprise / game changer to help like this relaunch of the Terminator series. And I mean, heck,
he really wanted you to be going, like, watching the movie going, well, everything's turning out roses for everybody. Like, we're going to be great at this, everything's going to turn out great. Everything's coming up Millhouse. And then...
and then it's supposed to be a big shock, and then the trailer. So you had said you had heard something or read something, too, that he had said that he had put it as PC or as diplomatically...
as diplomatically as he possibly could. Like, he's basically saying, like, I understand that they need to market the movie, and so they try and pick, like, the moments that would, stand out best in a trailer, essentially, of, like, I kind of understand why they did it, but still, he was shocked, to say the least, of, like, because that's not the way that he had shot it. Like, he had shot it to be the big reveal. And then that they give away the big reveal in the trailer, really, you could tell, even though he was being very nice about it, he's like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
You just gave away my whole movie. What are you doing?
I would be pissed, and if I was in his shoes, I would saddle the marketing department, whoever decision it was to do that, with the full brunt of the blame if the movie tanks, because I know I still want to see it, but I know my own interest kind of dropped in seeing it when I saw that, because like, oh, what are they doing? But then I thought after that, I was just like, well, what are they doing? Holy cow! Like the director, who like the marketing is separate from the guy who actually makes the movie, and I can't see anybody who's in charge of making this wanting to
give away big plot points,
wanting to give away a huge plot point like that. It just is like crazy.
What might be the biggest plot point in the movie?
Yeah. And what might be that draws people in and draws people to say, oh, you've got to go see this. It's like a total game changer. It's awesome. And yeah, the critics can always hate something, but the audiences will love it. But I wouldn't be surprised if people just tuned out of it because of that. Well, I've seen the movie. I know what happens.
Yeah, I don't see that keeping somebody away, though. Because it is a good enough turn that if you like the Terminator movies, you want to know how that happened and what's going on. Now, it definitely totally changes the movie for the viewer,
Yeah.
You know, you're going in knowing the big twist. It's like going in knowing who Kaiser Soze is. You're like, well, that's just to ruin the movie, you know? Like, if they would have shown the trailer who Kaiser Soze was, you would have been like, watching the whole movie going, oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
Which, you know, some of us were anyway, because obviously. But,
yeah. I was going to say, well, for some of us, but we've seen a lot of movies, so...
Yeah, see, so, you know, I don't know if we're that shocked by twists most of the time anymore. But
the twist.
But to give it away in the trailer...
to give away that
I always like try and get people to watch movies and try not to tell them anything about the movie. Like, as little as I possibly can about the movie to get you to want to watch it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like, it's really hard because some movies you really can't say anything about other than just trust me and watch this movie.
Yeah.
I can't, like, you
I don't
have to walk into
watch it. Please.
You have to walk into the movie knowing nothing about what's happening. Like, really, there's a lot of movies that I've seen that just work so well because I went into them not knowing anything about what the movie was about.
Yeah.
Like, even Primer, which is, like, my favorite time travel movie, saying that it's about time travel kind of ruins the first big twist. You know, it's like the first big reveal in the movie. Now, granted, it's like 10 minutes into the movie when you find out that they built a time travel machine. But
okay, so it's not huge, but it's
but when I went in, I didn't know anything about the movie when I went to watch it, and I went, oh wow, they made a time travel machine. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and you, like, it's kind of like a really nice reveal the way they did it, but you really can't get anybody to watch it without telling them something about the movie other than watch this movie.
Yeah.
You know?
You're like, okay, this is a time travel movie, that's all I'm saying, because even that makes it feel kind of like I'm giving stuff away.
Right.
Just watch it.
Yeah, just watch it.
I just know, though, that, like, you don't want to say too much about a movie, and I would say that the news we're getting from Suicide Squad. How's that for a segue?
Speaking of hot.
Speaking of hot, how about that? Well, I feel like in a opposite end of the spectrum, the more I hear about Suicide Squad, the less I want to see it because it sounds like it's trying.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to Suicide Squad.
Okay, differing opinions here, obviously. Like, this past week, it's revealed, leaked, or whatever, that the cast or director, whatever, that they basically brought in a therapist on site to help talk to the cast of characters and help them through any kind of issues they might be having because the movie is so dark and it's just so...
Well, apparently the director wants them to totally immerse themselves in the characters, and if they're having issues after being totally immersed in the character of suddenly thinking that maybe they're a psychopath, then they did bring in, yes, a lot of sites said therapist. It's a life coach.
Oh, God. Sorry.
It's even worse than you thought.
Oh, jeez.
In case you're having any issues working through,
life coach.
It's a blatant publicity stab. It's really ridiculous. And I think the first thing that I don't have a good defense for...
Okay, thank you.
In terms of blatant
because they're marketing. I'll say marketing it as like that they brought a therapist because it's so edgy.
It's marketing.
Yeah, you know
that's
what?
all it is. I have no defense for this.
Thank you.
Especially since it's not even a real therapist; it's a life coach.
Jeez.
And it's just in case you get too immersed in the character. Really?
Yeah, you know what? Okay, if they would have announced that, like, Halle Berry locked herself in a room for 3 months and was reading nothing about but how to be a cat burglar and was, like, using a litter box to go in, that would have not impressed me. not said, oh wow, this is really going to be, like, she's really in the characters, so that you know Catwoman's going to be an awesome movie.
Yeah.
It's like every bit of info that comes out keeps on...
This one, okay, so...
It's trying too hard to sell me on the edginess.
Some of the stuff is really obviously publicity stuff, and this definitely, obviously.
Bruce Campbell cut off his arm just so he could see what it really feels like to have a chainsaw.
Yeah, it's pushing it a bit too much, I think. And I think that everybody that's ever paid attention to movie news and the gossip surrounding movies coming out has seen much better publicity grabs than this, and can obviously see it for what it is, and just kind of go, so...
Yeah, as far as publicity stunts go, this was really transparent.
It's... No. That doesn't even deserve a mention on the show. Let's move on.
I don't know. I want to say, for me, just to wrap it, that it does not bode well with me that they're trying to do something that's this obvious, because to me that says that they're really reaching for something, that they're really trying to, like, okay, we got to start pulling people in fast. Maybe it's just my own thoughts.
It's just because you didn't like the pictures of the Joker, and now you're all upset about it.
It's not just because of the Joker stuff. It's because it's just like, I keep on hearing stuff about how they're wanting to make it dark and gritty, and it's just like the terminology is dated, the way they're talking about it is dated, the way that they're marketing it with such stupid, like, oh, we've got a...
blatant publicity stuff. A
very blatant publicity stunt. A year out. Okay, we're a year out from this film.
Right.
This isn't even like a few months, like we're 2-3 months out from the release of it, and it's quote-unquote leaked that he's brought in this therapist, which is actually a life coach. That part that I hadn't heard, I'd be laughing still. It's the kind of thing that you'd reveal, at least in my mind, the reveal or publicity stunt you'd do a few months out beforehand, just to get in that extra kind of push. Ooh, what's going to happen? A year out.
Yeah, and it needs to be like the subtle release of, like, nobody actually knew this, but the whole time on set there was... And it's got to be a professional therapist. You've got to have a professional therapist, otherwise it doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Because then everybody goes, life coach?
Yeah,
seriously?
Life coach on, sure.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, yeah, you can't even sell it at that point. It's like, it's so edgy that the people involved are getting really sucked into this dark world. It's like a life coach. I don't know. Let's just drop it at that and say...
it doesn't sell it anymore for me. I do still want to see it.
You do still want to see it, but it's just...
pretty good show, but...
We'll wait until that first trailer. That first trailer better be gangbuster dynamite, because it's just... So far, it's
going to be awesome.
It's like a poor decision, but...
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. I think what a good decision... You know what I think is a good decision is... the casting of the new Spider-Man.
Segues.
You gotta get that in there. You gotta work on it. You gotta refine it, make it look good and shiny, you know. So yes, a good decision would be casting a much younger Spider-Man. And that was Marvel intervening, saying we want somebody else. They didn't like James Garfield because...
he was 30?
He was 30 and he looked it. And let's face it, Tobey Maguire, as good as he was, he never looked like a person about to graduate high school in the first movie. He looked like maybe he was about to graduate college.
Yeah.
So, I prefer the first few Spider-Man films with Tobey.
The first couple with Tobey
are pretty good. Yeah. And... I never really liked James Garfield once, probably because he looks too much like our younger brother. Not that that's a problem, but it'd be the same.
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield, what'd I say? Whatever.
You said James.
James Garfield. Yeah, I keep on the presidential guy. Anyway, Andrew Garfield, he never quite did it for me, probably because he looked like our younger brother, and that's not some kind of knock against the way our younger brother looks. It's just weird. It'd just be as weird as if you saw a movie and your mom was the main hero. You'd be like, that's just weird.
It's kind of freaking me out.
It's kind of freaking me out. Shouldn't be jumping out of airplanes and doing super spy stuff. Should be like at home or about to pick me up from school. Anyway, they wanted a younger Spider-Man, and I can't remember the guy's name.
Is it Tom Holland?
Yeah, that's it. It was Tom Holland. Thank you. And he looks like he's 16.
Yeah.
Which I think is great, because he is a teenager in the comics for a good portion of it, like the age in Marvel and such. But, like, I think having it as a teenager, having this nice stark contrast in comparison to, like, these older heroes who are, like, you've got Thor, you've got Iron Man, you've got Hawkeye, you've got these people, like, either have families or, like, basically they're adults, and then you've got a kid who's super powerful, like, hopping around. Like, what do you do with that?
And I think you need that. I think that really will work well with, because Sony is actually loaning out the Spider-Man character to Marvel, so that we can put Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So Sony's working, so the new Spider-Man movie, they're going to have to consult with Marvel, because they're going to have to, like, work out how he's going to fit in. And definitely a younger Spider-Man, like you were saying, will fit in, like, he's a teenager, and then you've got all these older guys around. It's going to make for a really interesting dynamic, I think.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Definitely, and especially, like, I hope that they bring in Spider-Man into Civil War.
Yeah.
Because he's really, like, he's such an important character in the comic of Civil War that I think that you really need him in there. And so I really hope that they bring him in.
Yeah, and you wonder if that's what kind of, like,
on
the
new
whole
Captain
impetus
America.
behind Sony finally getting on the bandwagon and saying, okay, that and probably how poorly the Amazing Spider-Man 2 did.
Yeah.
Not that it did horribly and was a box office bomb, but it was nowhere near what they were hoping for it to be.
It just wasn't what they expected it to be.
Well, it's because they keep on doing those stupid, we'll throw every villain we can think of at the screen.
And it's kind of become, like, almost comical that that, okay, new one coming out, how many villains are going to be in this one? And it's like,
what in the world
it never works. I don't know why they keep doing it.
I think it worked once with Batman Returns, when you had Catwoman and Penguin.
Right, but that's because Catwoman isn't bad, or isn't all bad.
She isn't all bad. She has, like, this vengeance, vendetta thing going on in Batman Returns.
Right.
Penguin is the main villain.
Right, he's the villain, and you've got Catwoman as kind of, like, halfway in between.
She's halfway in between. She's the love interest, but, like, this villainous love interest, so that adds an interesting dynamic. It's not the same as cramming Venom and Sandman and, like, whatever, what's-his-face's character was supposed to be, Hobgoblin, Green Goblin 2, whatever, having, like, a split personality disorder thing.
It's too much. You end up with Batman Forever.
You end up with Batman Forever.
Well, Batman and Robin.
Batman and Robin.
Worse.
Batman.
Even worse, you end up with Batman and Robin.
Yeah, Batman
where you end up with, what is it, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Bane was in there. You're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're going to have the whole Rogues Gallery in here?
Yeah,
like,
really.
Let's just open up Arkham Asylum and just let the freaks run free.
Well, they were trying to do something in that with, I don't know, they were going for full Adam West there when it came to Clooney's film. And probably because they saw how campy Batman Forever was. And, like, it works. But it worked once. Yeah. And that's no guarantee that people are going to be like, yay, do more neon, more nickel bat suits, more.
Yeah, but they went too far with it. That's the problem. It's like, we can't just keep adding more villains. It's not going to work. You got Riddler and Two-Face as more than should be in one movie.
Yeah.
That was half of my problem with that movie, was that you're like, well, we could have done with one of the two.
Yeah.
And it would have been great. And then you added both of them in there, and now they're friends, and they're both trying to take over the world. You're like, really? Together?
Yeah.
Thought they were megalomaniacs, and they would probably want to take over the world on their own.
Of course, the videotape was a clever forgery.
Exactly.
Yeah. But we digress. Okay, Spider-Man decision, new casting, great idea. Can't wait to see the dynamic of how he plays against the other people in the film. And and it's nice to see a fresh face, a younger face on it. Again, not that I have a problem with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, but let's face it, they aren't teenagers. Yeah. And they never could sell you.
They couldn't really sell you on it.
Couldn't sell you.
And I really do hope
hey guys, there was like some comedy skit that had Steve Buscemi like in the role of a teenager or whatever, like, hey guys, let's hang out. And he was like wearing flannel and a backwards hat, trying to look all hip. I wish I could remember that, but yeah, it was great for just like, underscoring the fact like what in the world is with Hollywood casting people who look like they're in their 30s in high school. It just doesn't work.
It kind of gives you a complex when you're in high school too. You're like, why do I look so young? Those guys on Beverly Hills 90210, they got like full facial hair and stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, rub the temples. Anyway.
Like, why don't I look as old as Zach Morris?
Yeah. How come I don't look like Screech? No, wait. Nobody wants to look like Screech.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Moving on. We digress.
Lastly, in our news segment here, we want to talk about a couple of famous people that have passed recently. Like, well, it happened a few weeks ago, but still we want to talk about it. It's passing of James Horner and Dick Van Patten. But first, let's talk about passing of Mr. Horner in a plane crash. You know, he's isn't even one of these people who was like 93, like Sir Lee, who just like, okay, he had a little full life. He was a metal rock god, got to be, wizard and all this. Like, there's the general feeling that James Horner probably still had a lot to give, so to speak, to the world of cinema. It's a real shame that we lost him. It's like, what did in addition to the Titanic soundtrack, he did several of the Star Trek film soundtracks. Yeah. Like Wrath of Khan, many of the newer ones. Not the new ones, sorry, the next gen films he did. That's just the tip of the iceberg. I know there's more, I'm just blanking because everybody really remembers him for the Titanic soundtrack, which is more recent. But, again, long storied career, you're just sitting there going, this sucks. Like, this guy had...
Yeah, like, definitely, I mean, he was, I think, early 50s?
Early 60s. He was 61. And when you think that, like, John Williams, I think, is in his early 80s now.
Yeah.
And John Williams...
And
still composing.
Still composing. It's one of those things that you can do later into life. You can still be doing things like that. And, he probably could have kept going for quite a while and making some really great stuff.
I imagine, 20 more years, like,
Easy.
If John Williams retired tomorrow, that'd still be, he'd have 20 years more on James Horner than we had gotten, because it's just, and I don't know, I'd like to say I own several soundtracks that he's composed. I think he also did The Patriot. I want to say he did The Patriot as well, which is one that I really enjoy. It's like, it does have a patriotic feel. It will be based around like the formation of the country and good capturing the spirit of that. But he was good at capturing those kind of things. I know people before he had passed, like, he uses a lot of horns, and
he does.
But that's fine. Like, how great is it to have like your own signature stamp on music that really makes it so that you're like, that's a James Horner soundtrack if ever heard one.
Yeah, exactly. That that it's him. As much as like, you always go back to, as soundtracks are, you go back to John Williams because
he's great at composing tunes that you could whistle or hum along with.
You know that.
Like, that's a John Williams tune.
You can do that with James Horner too, though. Yeah. It's like you go, oh yeah, that sounds like a James Horner tune. Like, that sounds like something he'd do. Like, even if it's somebody else that did it, you're like, well, they were obviously doing it in the style.
They were doing it in a James Horner style because they have those kind of like long horns in there and like that slow kind of build up and those nice. Yeah, I just, it's hard because I think most of my CD collection is padded out with various soundtracks from James Horner and John Williams and Danny Elfman. Don't tie Danny. But it's just like, man, like half these albums I listened to are from him. But anyway.
Yeah, there's a few that were really prolific, and you recognize that it's their signature style when you're listening to the soundtrack, and they don't like overtake the movie. Like, sometimes you go, oh, hey, listen, music, while you're watching a movie, Like, it just kind of works with it, and you just kind of like feel that swelling, and you're like, oh yes, 76 trombones and you know, whatever, but you kind of go along with it, you know?
It's true, though. Oh gosh, who's the guy who composed... I like the new Batman Begins soundtracks, and I think they also do that, but it seems like it's really hard these days for you to find a composer who doesn't overdo it.
Yeah, it doesn't stand out from the work.
Yeah,
it just kind of blends into the movie.
Can somebody turn down the radio? I'm trying to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, one of the things that James Horner was always very good at, was that his music always blended very nicely into the movie and didn't stand out as, oh, hey, listen to the music, you know, which sometimes, and I've watched a great deal of movies, and sometimes you watching a movie and you're like, hey, this is a really good soundtrack, and you really shouldn't do that. You should never be watching a movie and go, hey, this score's really good, because then you're getting pulled out of the movie listening to the music.
Yeah.
And if you ever get pulled out of the movie, then that kind of ruins it. So you kind of need that, it goes along with it. And then thinking back on the movie, you go, hey, that was a pretty good soundtrack. Like, I should go pick up the score for Titanic, because it was actually really good. You know?
Yeah.
Like, rather than, during the movie getting pulled out of it. Which, always.
Which I'm watching some 80s action flicks. You're just like, you get pulled out. Like, wow. Yeah, this time of the sound of the synthesizer. Which is nice because James Horner didn't do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, actual still composer who composed music rather than like getting sucked into the time period.
The time period. And still kept, like, the orchestral stuff, and
yeah.
And sometimes you inadvertently get that, like when you go back and watch the 80s movies. I'm sure at the time it was perfectly natural, like you wouldn't have noticed it, but you go back and it kind of pulls you out of it because they tried to make it of that time, try to make it a contemporary soundtrack.
Yeah.
And that kind of pulls you out. Which, if you're watching Beverly Hills Cop in 1980, whatever it was that it came out, you don't notice
Axel
it.
F. Going,
yes.
Yeah.
And you hear, but now if you're watching it, as soon as Axel F comes on, you're like, oh,
hey, it's Axel F.
They're playing Axel F.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Which, like watching something like...
It became such an iconic
song. It's such an iconic song that it just pulls you out anyway. I can't remember what it was that I was watching prior to it, but I had been watching a handful of Arnie movies, and you see something like Total Recall, where you've got the orchestral music throughout it, which is great. It doesn't go for this weird blippity blop bloop sci-fi theme.
I tried to do a sci-fi thing.
I'm being sci-fi because there's syntho music in here.
Like, let's throw in a theremin.
Yeah, just for kicks. Which, it throws you
I like
out.
a theremin, but, it pulls you out of it.
It pulls you out of it. And it's nice because, like, you listen to music that was composed by James Horner, which is infinitely listenable to outside of the movies themselves. It's something like Wrath of Khan, which is a good soundtrack. Doesn't have, like, some kind of 80s or some kind of odd... whatever synth music to make it of the time or make it spacey.
Yeah.
So,
which a theremin always does. You always got to throw in theremin if you're doing a spacey movie.
Yeah, really. Anyway.
But anyway.
Fairly well, James Horner. Sorry we don't get to hear more new tunes from you. Also passed away, and I think it deserves at least a brief minute mention, was Dick Van Patten, who was in his 80s. He had passed away the same week that James Horner did, but I think that he got less noticed because he was older, and you're like, okay, he's an older TV half-movie actor, whatever.
Yeah, he was in some movies, but probably best known as the dad on 8 is Enough.
Yeah, and it's weird because I think people are still so much in shock because James Horner had died in a plane crash. And you're just like, really? Just like that? James Horner's gone?
Yeah.
Whereas, Dick Van Patten had been around a while, and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember him vaguely. But he was a funny guy.
He was really doing, most of his big stuff was before most of the people that really... would be, commenting on it would have been around or something that somebody might have seen. I mean, like 8 is Enough went off the air 40 years ago or something. I mean, most of the people have never seen that. The only thing that I guess most people might have seen Dick Van Patten in is one of Weird Al Yankovic's videos.
Well, no, he was in a few like comedy movies too. I swear, he was in.
Yes, Smells Like Nirvana. It was in the music video for Smells Like Nirvana.
Smells Like Nirvana, but no, he was in Spaceballs. So it was like I remember that.
Right?
Like,
yes, he was.
He was like he was one of the main.
But he wasn't a main character.
He was a main character.
It's not like he was known for being a big movie actor, and you may have seen him and you'd recognize his face, but. Yeah, but I can understand, like most kids these days.
Kids these days. He was in Super Dad. And he was like, but I remember him not so much from the show, because I didn't watch the show, but I remember him being like a comedy character actor in some of these films. He was just like that side guy that was always kind of like, I recognize that guy. He was kind of funny.
So, hey, I kind of know him.
Yeah.
Like, what was his name?
Yeah.
Well, but you see him in things, and you're like, kind of, like, I guess if you're old enough, you would go, hey, that's the dad from 8 is Enough.
Yeah.
But I think that probably the reason he didn't get more press was because most people didn't know him, hadn't been around long enough, and they didn't re-air 8 is Enough on TV Land,
Yeah.
Like, Nick at Night didn't have reruns of 8 is Enough, so kind of got lost somewhere in the shuffle. Which they really should have. 8 is Enough was a pretty decent show. But...
Yeah.
But yeah, a great comedic actor with impeccable timing.
Yeah.
I gotta say.
Which in a world of Seth Rogen's just makes it... I guess that might be another reason why I thought he was worthy of note in here, is because I was just feeling like... God.
We lost another name.
We lost another name.
Another great comedian.
We lost another great comedian, and yet Seth Rogen lives on. Okay, I'm sorry, I probably was going too far. I'm just like, I don't know. We lost.
Seth Rogen's going to kill you in your sleep, I swear.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I'll hear him coming a mile away because he won't be able to unstuff his hand from the Dorito bag that he's munching as he comes up, and I'll smell the fumes. And, anyway. You give me that look. Come on.
No, really, he's going to kill you.
I'll lay a trap. I'll bait it with some Doritos and a Mountain Dew or something, and I'll go, oh, cool. Or Cheetos. There we go. Maybe
Cheetos would be better.
Okay, yeah. I'll bait a trap with some Cheetos, and I'll hear him like,
now he's going to kill me.
Yeah, well then. There we go.
I love you, Seth. Don't kill me.
Whatever. Alright, time now for movies that needed a rewrite. Well, this is where we take a movie that we've seen in the past and we rewrite it in a way that we think would make it more watchable, a little bit more enjoyable. Doesn't always mean that the movie sucks. Sometimes it does. But in most cases, we feel like it just needs a tweak to make it that much better. This week, I've got 2012, which I enjoy. It's got John Cusack, Nathan Lane, a couple of side character actors that I don't know that well, honestly, but it's still a fun disaster movie in my mind, but it needed a few tweaks, and just I'll rattle them off really quick. First and foremost, to me, was the whole situation with the dad being divorced or separated or whatever. Are you sure I haven't talked about this one before?
I'm sure.
Okay. Because that seems to be this weird trope where you have, the couple is apart, the other guy comes in, he's a nice enough guy, and then, for the convenience of the movie, he dies. Yeah. To get the couple back together, which it's either go whole hog that they don't get back together, or have them separated. Don't bring in this other guy unless he's a heel. Unless you reveal that he's a heel. Because I've seen this too many times before where they bring in a nice guy and he dies in the third act. And for no good reason. Like a stupid death. And if you've seen 2012, which some of you probably have and some of you haven't, spoilers ahead or whatever, he dies He dies in the last third. It's like, it's a banana peel death, really. Yeah. Compared to the way other people die, like either nobly self-sacrificing or Woody Harrelson's Crazy in the Woods character. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it is just... I'll say it. It annoys me when they have a character like that in the movie. I feel just...
Where the guy's likable enough, like, you're like, well, yeah, I understand why she's with him. Like, hey, he's a decent guy. And you're like... And then they kill him off just so that the chick can get back with our hero.
Yeah, basically. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I've seen that particular trope before. Like, there's no good reason to kill this guy off, but we're just going to do it. So, for, like,
plot... So that we can have the romantic rendezvous at the end?
Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. It's dumb. It feels like you wasted character space. I'd rather that it not be that, oh, wow, the guy that she's now dating actually knows how to fly a plane and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Like, all these things. I'd rather have... Like, if you're going to go, like, banana crazy here with him, it's a disaster film. Like, logic is out the window at this point. Yeah. Or all like, the guy who's her husband or separated or whatever... He could also be a part-time pilot, rather than being a limo driver, like he was in the film. He could have been a pilot, so, hey, yeah, he can get away. He could have been a limo driver and a pilot. Whatever, for the sake of convenience of the plot. You don't need that other guy to make things weird. The other part that really bothers me is Nathan Lane's character was right. He's, like, built up they didn't have a heavy. I mean, the heavy, so to speak, in the film is the whole planet falling to pieces.
Yeah.
But... he was also supposed to be built up as a semi-bad guy character or whatever. Yeah. But you don't feel it. I don't feel it in the movie, Mm. You don't feel it because throughout the movie, he's like saying, like, oh, well, they got left behind. We've got to get in and save as many people as possible. Yeah. And he has a point. And at the end there, when they're talking about how, like, oh, we've got to let these people, like, what way is it to start off a new... batch of humanity if we let all these people die when blah 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 and he's like, no, it's whatever.
Like, no, this is a bad idea. You're gonna sink my ship.
You're gonna sink the ship. You're gonna kill us all. Or when they say the guy gets all offended, the scientist guy who like helps coordinate when everything's gonna crumble into the ocean and whatnot. Yeah. He like gets all wholly offended because they have like rich people getting on. And it's like. Yeah, his character explains, like, this isn't built on, like, wishes and happy dreams. Yes, rich people helped build this, and we need to, like, secure them a spot, or else this wouldn't have happened. Yeah, and it's hard because they try to build up his character as this... I mean, it's not Nathan Lane, I can't remember. It's Oliver Platt.
Yeah,
it's Oliver Platt. I'm, like, saying here, it's like Nathan Lane's not right. It's Oliver Platt's character, but he's right. In the end, like, he sounds like this, like, kind of mean guy, but in the end, you're like...
Yeah. At some point, you're just like, yeah, if you really think about it.
Yeah, if you really
there's only so much room on this boat.
Yeah.
And the people that paid for it, they want a seat.
Yeah, it's... And that was the problem, is that they tried in the movie to make him the bad guy or whatever. The person you're supposed to be like, he just cares about, like, because they paid for it. It's like, well, yeah, wouldn't you? I have $500 million and I helped build your life-saving space raft or boat raft. No, I'm not going to. I'm sorry.
Like, hey, if one of them wants to give up their seat, that's fine.
Yeah.
But really, aren't they kind of entitled to it because they paid for the damn thing? I mean, come on.
Yeah, so his whole Oliver Platt's character being like this, like, kind of... They tried to play him as a wormy guy, but he had a point. The entire movie had a point. And it just... because his character was right, it undermined all the noble speeches and... this is so horrible what we're doing to other people that the scientist guy had to say. It just, to me, it's like, well, tough townnails, It's like, here's the reality of the situation. You need to
Not everybody gets on the boat.
Not everybody gets on the boat. Like, what's
it's Noah and his family, and the rest of you get to die. Okay, bye.
Yeah, Noah's family. They brought on some animals. They brought on some extra people. Like Noah and his family, his extended family, and the animals, and the rest of you, sorry. You should have built your own ark, Okay.
Maybe if you had been listening.
maybe
you would have been building an ark.
Well, yeah, but that's another thing that was in the film too. Is that the president making a speech about like how he's like, you know what, maybe we should have had a lottery. I don't know, maybe we should have done it differently for extra room on the boat. So his kind of meandering thoughts about it made more sense to me. He wasn't saying we had to have done it this way. Like build space.
It's like maybe there was some other thing we could have done.
Yeah,
like that makes sense. Of like maybe we didn't quite do this the right way.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense.
That makes it more open-ended than, like, this is wrong. No, it's not wrong. Of, like, okay, you can't underscore... Yeah, the whole thing there didn't work for me. And his... what was his name? He played opposite Mel... not Mel Brooks, sorry. Mel Gibson in the movies. Danny Glover.
Mel Brooks would take offense to you confusing him with Mel Gibson.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But yeah, Danny Glover, he played the president and did a good job. And he had he makes a good case for why he should tell everybody, yeah, the whole world's going to heck. There's nothing we can do about this. Yeah. In the end, and he makes a good case for like, okay, so people can say goodbye to one another, like, and let them know, rather than just like having the powers that be say, see ya, and have everybody wonder what the heck happened to the government. So he made a better case for like saying stuff, and he had, I don't know, as far as interactions go, his was better. Like he had a better way of putting Oliver Platt's character in his place than the scientist guy with all these noble blatherings. He just had like a simple, okay, we're screwed, but let's let everybody know that they're screwed so they can say their goodbyes at least. You have that. So that held up well for me. Again, this isn't Shakespeare, this is a disaster film. Yeah. But there are things, even when you're having the fun of watching the whole world go to seed and boom, that you can do better to make it go from just like your annual disaster film to like that film that
could have stepped it up a notch.
You step it up a notch.
Like just a little bit of rewriting and maybe kind of clue in the audience that you know that Oliver Platt's character is actually right.
Yeah.
Instead of like trying to wholly make him the villain. Because obviously that's kind of like a jerk move. Of like, nope, none of the rest of you get to get on. Like, sorry, you all gotta die. Like, obviously that's kind of a jerk move. But on some level, you gotta have like somebody there that's going, yeah, but he might be right about this.
Yeah, he might be right about this. There is even this scene from the movie where he, like, before they're, like, abandoning the White House. Yeah. Where he is on the phone to his mom, who's kind of got, like, borderline dementia or something. And he's, I'll call you next week. I love you. I'll talk to you later. Yeah. And, like, he, like, deep sighs. And the scientist guy is like, your mom's not, like, I thought they gave you an extra ticket. And he's like, they did. I don't think she should be on this boat because we need to bring people who can contribute to the future of humanity. Mm-hmm. And, like, he's choked up, obviously, about it. And there's, like, a throwaway joke about, like, what, am I going to use my extra ticket for my ex-wife? No way. You know, but, like, even he makes a sacrifice of, like, I'm not even bringing my own mother on this because, like, that would not be good for the future of humanity. And they're still trying to build him up as this kind of wormy guy and just didn't, Like,
you really should have had a bit more empathy for him at that point. You really don't in the movie. Like, it's really not built up that way. Like, not phrased that way, I guess. Yeah. Like, yes, this is him being a human person. It was more like, oh, well, this guy's so, whatever. Wow, this guy's really evil. He's not even taking his own mom.
Yeah, but the problem is it did make me feel sympathy for him rather than make me feel like.
But that's not the way the movie did it.
That's the way the movie did it.
You kind of like definitely as a human person, you feel that, but the movie wasn't doing that. The movie was taking you like, wow, this is a really evil guy. He won't even take his mom. Yeah. Like the movie wasn't going there, and it really should have been.
Yeah. It was just, So what do you got for us this week of the movie that needed a rewrite?
Well, it pains me to say,
Okay.
but I'm going with Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Well, it's got Tom Hanks.
It's, Independence Day weekend. It's a, patriotic, flag-waving kind of movie, and, consistently in the top 10 of best conservative movies of all time. National Review's ranked it there a number of times.
Really?
Really.
Okay.
Because basically Forrest Gump is the conservative character that basically does everything and saves everybody. And then Jen A is the countercultural person who's kind of going against everything and being the hippie. And she gets AIDS and dies. And he lives... Oh, sorry, spoiler alert. It's unspecified, I guess, in the movie.
Yeah, unspecified illness.
Unspecified illness. She gets
it's
AIDS
a metaphor for AIDS! Yeah.
Yeah, and, okay. I gotta tell you, I was along with the ride. It's a goofy movie, like the guy that, kind of dim, and he ends up controlling the events of the past 50 years, like he's basically got his hand in everything and likes to drink Dr. Pepper and has to pee when he talks to the president. Okay, fine, I'm with you. Oh, he's a ping pong champion, awesome. Him being involved in all of these things and some really great special effects, just like the way that they integrated him with the archival footage and such. It's actually pretty well done.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't expect anything less from Robert Zemeckis. Robert Zemeckis, great director.
Yeah.
Made some of our favorite films. He made the Back to the Future trilogy. He did Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He made the one rewatchable Beatles movie.
Which one's that?
I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Oh, okay.
It was just really great. And actually really funny. But the one thing that really just killed me was when he decides to run across the country.
Oh, that, non-stop.
Non-stop back and forth across the country. And I went, okay, so are we watching a cartoon now? Because people don't do that. Just non-stop running across the entire country.
Oh, yeah.
And then I completely checked out when he grabbed the t-shirt, wiped it on his face.
I was going to say, yours says smiley face.
And he pulls it back, and it's a perfect smiley face. And I went, okay, I'm done. I'm like, you know what? Being a ping pong champion, telling JFK, he's got to pee, whatever. I'm fine with that. I was okay. I was going with you. Because these are things that might have happened or, seem reasonably feasible.
Well, yeah,
but
because he's
running
not even...
across the country, I'm right on that precipice. I'm right there. Okay, I'm coming with you, but you better not do anything else. And then the perfect smiley face off of the t-shirt, and I went, you go away. I'm like, nope, I'm done. That's it. I cannot finish this movie. It just ruined the whole darn thing for me. It was so comic, just so... I was watching a cartoon. I'm like, this is just ridiculous, and it makes everything that precedes and comes after...
A cartoon.
Yeah. It just ruins the whole movie, because it does not work as something that might have actually happened to a real person.
Yeah.
It just ruined the whole thing.
No, I could see that. Yeah. Because, okay, the ping pong champion, whatever, he was, doing exhibition tours, which you could still see an everyman doing. Yeah. And he's not, whispering in JFK's ear, telling him what to do, policy-wise. But he's just a footnote.
Yeah, he's just kind of there. And
he's a footnote in Selma. He's a footnote JFK and LBJ and George Wallace.
All of these things. And he's just kind of there and maybe helps steer it in some weird way. He says something to somebody and somebody takes it a different direction. than they might have normally otherwise.
Oh yeah, it was like that beginning where he influences Elvis's
teaches
thing.
Elvis how to dance. Yeah, it's like things like that where you go, well, yeah, okay, it's kind of silly, but sure, I can. I'll go with it.
Yeah,
like, I'm going along with you. Willful suspension of disbelief. It's a movie. It's a movie. Fine, I'm going with you. But yeah, so much love to Bob Zemeckis, who has made some of my favorite films of all time. But just no.
Yeah,
no,
as soon as
no.
you started talking about it and saying what you were going to do, I knew that was the scene you were going to be talking about, because that was, yeah, for me too, the same thing. It just like goes from like, why is he running? Okay, this is just it got slow, it got boring, and then it got dumb. Like way dumb. Like,
as stupid as a stupid does.
It was like the, it's a footnote, that is the first movie I ever saw with my girlfriend, now wife, Suzanne, was Forrest Gump. I remember feeling uncomfortable several times. The sex scene type junk going on, and how stupid some of it got. Yeah. And I do remember feeling, man, this movie's getting kind of dumb.
I went and saw it expecting it to be a great movie. I mean, it got great reviews.
Robert Zemeckis, great reviews.
Yeah. Robert Zemeckis, I'm like, hey, I love Back to the Future. Loved Want to Hold Your Hand. This is going to be a great show.
Yeah.
And even afterwards, it ended up winning like a ton of awards.
Yeah.
Like, Tom Hanks won Best Actor for acting like an idiot. The same year that Dumb and Dumber came out. And Jim Carrey did it better. I didn't even like that movie, but Jim Carrey was better at acting like an idiot.
Yeah, I'd say it comes naturally to both of them. Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, Tom Hanks couldn't act his way out of a paper bag. But
yeah, it's still one of my favorite lines of all time from South Park. You cast Tom Hanks in that. Yeah. But yeah, and also it was one of the first times I remember thinking, like, why are people so agog at Tom Hanks? It just feels like that. Yeah, as we like to say, like Tom Hanks playing of this, Tom Hanks playing of that, Tom Hanks playing that.
It hasn't been just a guy playing a character since I guess the tall blonde man with one red shoe.
Yeah.
Or I guess it was
the man with one red shoe.
Yes. No, the tall blonde man with one red shoe was the original.
Okay. Yeah, but then he was
the original French film that it was based on.
I was going to say, this is probably based on a French film I haven't heard of, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
Yes, that's the original French film. It's the tall blonde man with one red shoe.
Alrighty.
Which was better, quite frankly.
Okay.
But it's always funnier in French. Anyway, we digressed again.
Yeah, well, too bad there isn't like a French version of Forrest Gump. I heard, there's one last thing on that. I heard an argument that it was the soundtrack that really got people, and having watched it once again after many years, I would say
I own the soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack is fantastic.
I haven't rewatched the movie since I went to the movie theater and watched it, but I own the soundtrack. It's a darn good soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack. It's like a great soundtrack. It's a tour of like the musical, it's a greatest
musical
hits.
History. It's great. Yeah, just some really great songs, and I especially like Disc 1.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I've listened to that so many times. Yeah, I love the soundtrack. Never got above number 2 on the Billboard, though.
Yeah.
12 million copies. Never got above number 2. I don't remember it was a number 1.
Well, not Forrest
But it never got above number 2. But still, one of the great soundtracks.
One of the great soundtracks, maybe not quite as good movie.
Yeah.
Anyway. Alrighty, time for Thank God for Video, where Lunchbox and I make our recommendations as to the movies you should see that you might have missed in theaters, and whether they're out there on YouTube or streaming on Netflix, some service, or they're only available on Laserdisc, but you gotta go to eBay to find it, you should find these films, because, by golly, they are films that you should not have missed. Yep. So, starting off this week, I'm doing, mine is At World's End. I always thought it was At the World's End, but At World's End, starring Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright directed comedy about a group of drinking buddies from college that are all grown up now. Mm-hmm. Most of them have like good paying jobs and like solid life, except for one. That's the one played by not Edgar Wright, sorry, Simon Pegg's character, who's kind of like perpetually stuck in the woo, we're partying kind of 20-something attitude. And like somehow or other he wrangles all of his old friends and drinking buddies into trying to accomplish this goal that they had back when they were younger, which was to hit every pub in the small town that they used to live in, like, and do one of the like a pub crawl, basically, hitting all of them and going sequentially and ending with one called The World's End. And just like, I guess you would say it's his bucket list type thing, something he's like trying to do, but I don't want to say hilarity ensues, but it's funny. It's basically he wrangles them all. They go back to this small town, and like they're ready to tap out after, like the reasonable people are ready to tap out after 3 bars. Like, okay,
okay, we had 3 pints. We're ready to go.
They're like, okay, we've got to go back. We've got businesses and families and junk like that. And then you've got Nick Frost's character, who's promised never to drink again for reasons that are disclosed later in the film. But it's got the whole like it's last of the Cornetto trilogy, which like don't know what those are. Those are basically English version of drumsticks. Essentially, English version of ice cream drumsticks, and they make a cameo appearance. Would you say the ice cream makes a cameo appearance somewhere in the film? Each one color coded to the movie. I believe it was like red for. Wasn't it red?
Red for Shaun of the Dead.
Red for Shaun of the Dead.
Blue
for Hot Fuzz, because it was cops and blue, Right. And this one was green because, well, as it turns out, the little small town that they are going to revisit has been completely taken over by aliens. And they don't realize this till halfway through the film, and there's lots of funny things that happen as they do. And I absolutely love this movie. I don't think it got enough people seeing it. I think Lunchbox was saying earlier that it was possibly, like, it needed a tweak. He was surprised I wanted to do this one as a thank God for video, because there were parts that could have been a bit more polished. It wasn't quite as, I don't want to say up to snuff, but it wasn't quite as tight a film as Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead was, but it still was pretty funny.
I enjoyed it, and definitely, upon, like, a rewatch it, I enjoyed it more. Like, I guess maybe I wasn't right in the mood at the time when I watched it the first time.
And that can make a difference,
Maybe Simon Pegg's character reminded me of Joe too much.
I was going to say too much of Old Friends,
I just know so many people, or maybe it reminded me of me too much. But because I would be that guy that would be like, oh, come on, guys, we can do the whole thing. We can do the Miracle Mile, or whatever they called it in the movie. They're like, come on, we can do this. And kind of like trying to relive former glories. Kind of makes Simon Pegg's character a little sad.
It does, but in a way, I like the movie more for that, because his other comedy films, like Shaun of the Dead, they have those kind of melancholy twists where the main character, which is pretty much Simon Pegg every time, has like that kind of undercurrent of something else is going on deeper, like in Shaun of the Dead, he needs to learn to like do a bit of growing up. Well, not just growing up, but like he needs to get his life together. He's just kind of putzing around in life, and he needs to get it together. And dire circumstances, like zombies, causes him to have to get his stuff together, so to speak. And with Hot Fuzz, he's just always in like, I'm businessy police guy. This is who I am mode. And then by the end,
he needs to learn to loosen up a bit.
And he learns to loosen up, and then. World's End, he learns to like that he has to grow up. He can't be stuck being this, and it does make it sad too, because plot reveal spoiler 1. You see at the end of the film, like towards the end of the film, it turns out that his character is even sadder than you think, because he's got like he's been, he really has made this his whole life, and like his friend who hadn't been drinking before because they had gotten into an accident and whatnot finds out that he's been basically like cutting himself and such, that he is a sad character. So his whole world is so engulfed in this, I need to have my glory days again, and that was the only thing in life ever had for me was back then. That he turns from just like the kind of like funny schlub to that sad character that you're like, oh, and then things got serious. Like, it just stopped. And I understand that might have been like partly a rewrite thing too in your mind. Like, it didn't just go for like sad; it went for the jugular of sad. Yeah. Like, and now
he's really kind of pathetic.
It goes from he goes from schlub to like that kind of pathetic person that you're like, wow, now I just feel really sad for this guy instead of just
kind of laughing at him as kind of the goofy guy that wants to relive older years. He's really needs this.
He needs this, and it's sad that he needs this.
Yeah, and it's sad that he needs this. And that was, I guess, that's part of it. I guess why maybe I would have wanted to rewrite it of like, I don't think that we needed to go to that dark of a spot.
I think it felt good to me because he's, how do you say it? It was a trilogy of films, and I think that you need, in my mind, you want to have that one more. It's not the same characters each time, but the same kind of base of character, personality.
Yeah,
the schlub who learns to pick it up.
Yeah.
I think for his last film, maybe Edgar Wright was just looking for like, what is the like rock bottom schlubberly that you can go for that makes it so they're not just kind of like the idiot who finally gets it together, but is still kind of an idiot, but the guy who's like, he's a pathetic. he's like a pathetic schmuck too on top of it, and you're like, oh man.
It kind of gets a little dark.
It gets dark. It does get dark for that, but again, in an odd twist, I'm the one who preferred the dark twist this time because it was like it was also a little deeper than you're like, man, dude, Edgar, I wasn't ready to go there with you. I wasn't ready for this to be deep. I wanted this to be funny, and it was funny. It was still hilarious. There's a lot of good.
It is funny, and there's a lot of great moments in it.
There's a lot of great moments from the cast.
Rewatching it, I definitely enjoyed it, but
as they go along drinking, they're having memories and whatnot, encountering. Like the one guy encountering his school bully or whatnot, like doesn't want to make amends with him. that kind of stuff is just, it's hilarious. It's still, I think, when it's funny, it's still on point funny, and I don't think it did nearly as well as the other films had done. Yeah. And I think it is because of that kind of twist at the end there, or twist. I don't know if it's so much of a twist, but you just a reveal that wow, he's even worse than you thought. You knew that he was a schlub, and you're used to seeing that like in Hot Fuzz. In Hot Fuzz, he was kind of a schlub, but he was the like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
Kind of schlub, or like that kind
of like didn't have any friends because he was so focused on everything.
He was the kind
of learned to like associate with people.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is in the other films he was the kind of person you wouldn't want to associate with too long. They're kind of like, okay, you're really into your work, or okay, you're really into not doing anything at all. Like you've got your like, let's go to Chili's again, or let's go to or whatever. I don't know what the equivalent of the Winchester would be, but let's go to that bar again. Let's go to the Isle of Saloon or the whatnot. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I said, hey, meet me at timeout.
Meet me at timeout. Okay. It's like, what does the one character say? Like, this idea of like a good hangout or romantic date, no foolproof or whatever, a strong barricaded place is all the same, same pub. But anyway, that's my thank God for video. I need to go get it actually myself. I haven't picked it up yet. I asked her for a few Christmases, but if you missed it and you just weren't sure, you read reviews for it that said it weren't as good, that it wasn't as good, then at least
it's in a way kind of right. It wasn't as good, but it is.
It's worth the viewing. It's not worth. You shouldn't just skip it altogether. It's worth a view.
It's worth
a view, and heck, I think Edgar Wright's commentaries and such and the extra features are worth it on the discs too. So that's why I'd say go ahead and pick it up. So what do you got for Thank God for Video?
Well, like you, because it's Independence Day weekend, I decided to go with an incredibly American movie.
Yes. I actually almost did pick The Patriot, just for the record.
So I was trying to come up with a nice, America kind of movie to pick, and so
if you say Stalag 17 or what's
Stalag 17,
Das
no,
Boot.
Das Boot's an incredibly good movie.
Das
I love
Boot is good for
Wolfgang Peterson is great director, but that is not my pick for this week, and I came really close to picking The Sandlot.
Oh, well, actually, I laugh, but yeah.
But it's a great movie and incredibly quotable.
Yes.
You're killing me, Smalls. It's one of the great ones, and one that even as an adult, even though it's kind of a kid's movie, that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
But I figure by this point, our listener has seen The Sandlot.
Yeah. It's one of those movies. It has a Wonder Years type feel.
Yeah, it does. That is kind of that era.
Yeah.
And much as I love Sandlot, because everybody has seen it by now, I'm going to actually recommend one that probably people haven't seen.
Okay.
Which is For Love of the Game.
Okay.
The Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah.
Which, as everybody knows, Kevin Costner's baseball films are the only Kevin Costner films worth watching.
I thought Tin Cup was okay. He was okay.
I do love.
He was
Tin
okay
Cup.
as a golfer, and Cheech was pretty good in it too.
Yeah, I do love Tin Cup. Okay, so his sports movies then.
Yeah, I think his sports movies are good.
I'll go with his sports movies.
That's because they require his unique style of acting.
Yes, it somehow works.
Yeah,
but it's the story of a pitcher who is pitching the last game of his career and ends up drinking too much the night before. Chappie, a lot of little bottles makes a big bottle. And comes out there, and the manager of the team wants to put him with a different catcher than he's normally used to, but he insists that he get John C. Reilly as his catcher, and goes out there and pitches the game of his career. And throughout the film, like while he's pitching this incredible game, and you get to see that and really get into it, is that it's flashing back to his life, and ends up being kind of a romantic drama.
Yeah.
Essentially. Well, basically he's, falling in love with this girl that he met on the road and trying to convince her that he's not just some guy that picks up girls on the road, and he actually cares about her. And that's, I enjoy a good romantic drama, like when well done.
Yeah.
But the added stuff with while he's on the field and pitching this incredible game, and his interaction and but just the way that the scenes with him on the field are shot, and some really great interactions, like some of the stuff with him and the romantic drama is actually really well done.
Yeah.
And kind of like funny and heartfelt, and many lines in there that I still use to this day. Like, they're moving, and Kevin Costner's character, Chappie, says, "I ain't moving no books. Where's the pillows?" And I still roll that line out anytime somebody's moving. I think I'm not, no books. Where's the pillows? But just those nice little moments, little throwaway lines here and there.
Yeah.
And him standing on the mound and throwing the pitches is just so engaging. I forget who directed it, but there's he gets up on the mound and he's ready to pitch, and the entire field, the baseball field, the stadium, everybody is going crazy all around him, and he just pulls back up and says, "Clear the mechanism." And you hear, like, the hush starts at the front of the screen and goes all the way around you.
as everything closes out, all of the sound closes out around you. And he looks around, and you still see the people jumping up and down and screaming, but it's all gone. Like, he's so focused that he's just gotten rid of everything, and it's so beautiful to hear. In surround sound, he says, clear the mechanism, and it goes, and everything closes. Like, just one of my favorite sound moments of any movies that I've ever seen. So definitely, if you're going to watch it with the surround sound, so that you can hear that, because it's beautiful. And just so much fun, and longer than you would expect your traditional film to be. Like a traditional romantic drama, an hour and a half. It's a little over 2 hours long. But because of all of the stuff that they put in with that, pitching that game, you are so sucked into that game that you're kind of going along with him for his ride of everything that got him here. Yeah. With his, relationship with the girl that he fell for. And really, it's well done and really a great movie. And one of the... everybody's seen Bull Durham. Everybody's watched Field of Dreams.
Yeah.
But I don't think nearly enough people watched For Love of the Game.
Oh, maybe at that point, it's another baseball game.
Yeah, it's another baseball movie, but it's Kevin Costner in a baseball movie. Fine, I've seen that.
Yeah.
But no, it's really well done and beautifully shot. Sound is great. It's worth your time. It's a good movie.
Okay. So that's For the Love of the Game?
For Love of the Game.
I always want to throw in a...
You keep adding extra thus.
Yeah.
It's For Love of the Game.
For Love of the Game. For Love of the Game.
For Love of the Game.
For Love of the Game.
There you go.
At World's End.
At World's End.
Just
Quit adding extra these.
Just one little...
I know. Everybody says For Love of the Game wrong. It is For Love of the Game, not For the Love of the Game. It's For Love of the Game. It's what he writes on the baseball in the movie.
Okay. Well, those are our Thank God for videos. If you haven't seen them, don't own them, remember to go out and grab them. And now, time for Strained Metaphors with Lunchbox.
So, in keeping with my theme of patriotic movies, I'm going with a quote from Independence Day.
Excellent.
Which is, I ain't heard no fat lady. Because, so the fat lady singing is the end of everything, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the problem that we have, or at least I know that I do, is that we kind of jump to the end a little too quickly. Like, you want to start something, and then you feel like it's past time when you could have done that. It's like, even, like, starting a new thing at work, and, like, start a new project. And you're like, oh, well, it was a long weekend. It's a Monday. I'm not going to start anything on a Monday. And then next thing you know, it's halfway through the day on a Thursday, and you go, well, yeah, but it's almost Friday, and then it's Friday, and you're like, well, I'm not going to start something new on Friday. But I think that, we give up on things a little too quickly. We think that we're at the end before we've even started. It's Monday, and, well, it was a long weekend, and, I'm really not up to starting something right now. I need to relax and just kind of do my regular thing, and then, maybe tomorrow I'll start doing it. And then next thing you know, you're halfway through Thursday. You're like, well, but tomorrow's Friday. It's it's the end of the week. I'm not going to start something new now. Like, you're already at the end before you even started something new. You gotta really get out there and start doing it before you can say, all right, well, the fat lady sang, and so it's over. And so, start something. Don't assume it's already the end.
Well, I guess that about wraps it up for the One More Rewrite podcast. And even though we are wrapping it up and it is the end, That doesn't mean Fat Lady has sung for us. Join us next week as we review more movies, talk about Thank God for Videos, and the news as we hear it and see it. So for Lunchbox...
Must go faster. Must go faster.
I'm Jester. Toodaloo.